AOC is getting a little bit nervous. I think she's actually kind of frightened. Either that or it is just me. I want attention. I want attention. I want attention. But she sounds a little bit scared. So there was this episode that happened on Friday that I wanted to tell you about. There was a reporter, an independent journalist, who approached AOC and said, "Hey, Congresswoman, can you tell us, are you under investigation by DOJ? Have they told you yet? Have they responded?" And she said, "I mean, they haven't responded. I asked them. They haven't responded to me. But, once again, I'm fully using my First Amendment to inform people of their constitutional rights. They say a lot of things, but I've written a formal letter and they won't respond." And then she went on to say, "I'll tell you, it'll be a dark day," basically, I'm paraphrasing, "if Donald Trump and his administration dare to arrest me for just telling people about their rights." Part of this has to do with what happened a couple of Fridays ago. I guess it would be, well, not a couple Fridays ago, but the Friday before last in Newark, New Jersey, out of the Delancey facility, where you had some representatives from Congress joining some protesters, and they were told not to trespass and not to cross onto the property by ICE, but that didn't stop them. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you got the Newark, New Jersey mayor being arrested, and calls for some of the representatives, including one, LaMonica MacGyver, and Menendez. I believe he's a relation of Robert Menendez, who's now in jail. Yeah, really. Anyway, they were out there trespassing, and this happened. LaMonica is the one in the red. I know, I just love saying it. Like, it's not Monica, it's LaMonica. The Monica, the one and only. MTG is calling for her, Marjorie Taylor Greene, to be expelled from Congress because of what she was doing there, leading these protests, including body slamming, allegedly, one of the female ICE agents and some other ICE agents. This was also caught on camera, and this is the issue that has AOC so upset. If you're listening on the Spotify podcast, I applaud you for that. I encourage you guys to go over to Spotify. You can listen to the audio version or actually get the video version there too, absolutely free. And it would be great, actually, if you could also maybe do a little 5 stars while you're there. But we're looking at video of LaMonica actually bumping into some of these ICE agents, and things are getting really, really, really heated. I want to explain that for our audio listeners. And it was kind of a sad scene. So you can see LaMonica again pushing herself up against the ICE agent. This is not a good look for a representative of U.S. Congress. Some of you have suggested this is an insurrection of sorts.
How this administration is trying to restrict Congress from doing their bare duties and the responsibilities that the people have elected us to do. What we just witnessed was just disgusting. I am very upset. I am very angry, and I am very hurt that they could be able to do something like that to us. These are people who are supposed to be officers, who are supposed to protect us, and they have done none of that. If they can treat 3 members of Congress like that, just imagine how they can treat people on the street each and every day, both undocumented and people who are citizens here in this country. It makes absolutely no sense to arrest the mayor of the largest city of this state who did nothing wrong. He went inside of the gate and told them that he was waiting for us to come out because we were conducting an oversight visit. They asked him to leave. He left out of the gate. Instead of the ICE officials that were here, who were supposed to be here to lead us on a tour, they then came out to have a huddle to talk about how the mayor was inside and that he should be arrested still because he was inside. They then came back out after the mayor was out here with you all, some of you out here. They then left us still. We're waiting for a visit to come back out here and arrest the mayor who had already left off of their property from behind the gate.
Okay, but their complaint from ICE's standpoint is that he was trespassing. Now, they could have asked for an appointment to go there and they could have been escorted, but that's not what they chose to do. Instead, they chose to descend onto the property to try and push their way into the ICE detention facility. And obviously, we're seeking this kind of public attention, which is exactly kind of the theme of this show. Whether it be Comey seeking his public attention, or AOC seeking her public attention, or LaMonica and Menendez and the Newark mayor seeking their public attention, it's as though they're trying to goad the administration into arresting them. I mean, listen, I don't think it's that hard. You're trespassing, for goodness sakes. Look at what they did at J6. I saw what you said, peace of my mind. If J6 protesters were arrested for trespassing, then why wouldn't these people be arrested as well? And listen, for the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, this is on the table. And AOC, when she gets out there and says things like,
if anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem.
Yeah, when she says things like that, people start saying, well, what does she mean by that? We're going to have a problem. Is this sort of state versus federal law saga? Tricia McLaughlin from DHS said, listen, if AOC decides to get involved in one of these protests, she's not immune from anything just because she is AOC, just like LaMonica and Menendez and the mayor of Newark, New Jersey are not immune. Watch.
If AOC goes down there and pulls the same kind of stunt that we've seen on Friday and today, are you going to arrest her as well?
If she trespasses and if she assaults law enforcement officers, as we saw earlier, I think that's certainly on the table.
Yeah, certainly on the table. You better believe it's on the table. Like, this is not that hard to understand, is it? You know, there's an attorney that spoke recently, Andy McCarthy, on Fox News, and he's not necessarily a big Trump person, so I think it's kind of interesting when he weighs in on this. I'm not an attorney by background, financial person, but not an attorney, and I will just say my basic knowledge, right, of the Constitution and the law suggests that you don't go trespassing onto federal property when you're being specifically told not to. And if you continue to trespass, well then heck, they are going to arrest you, and it shouldn't be that hard to figure out. But Andy McCarthy, let's let him say it.
So they broke out in song on Monday. A few days prior to that, though, the video was a lot rougher. Another showdown outside that ICE detention center in New Jersey. Protesters, including Democratic lawmakers, members of the clergy there, protest the facility now a couple days in the making. Andy McCarthy is with us to tell us who's right, who's wrong on all this and where it goes from here. Andy, good morning to you, and thank you for your
morning,
time.
Bill.
Yeah, AOC says Tom Homan, Secretary Noem, you're the problem here. Here we go. Watch.
If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem.
Okay, so legally, who's in the right here? Do the lawmakers have the authority to go into this facility, or do they not?
No, they absolutely don't have the authority to go in without the approval of the executive branch. The enforcement of the federal immigration laws is a federal responsibility. Congress has oversight of it. But members of Congress who are not acting as Congress, they're acting as individuals, they don't have any more right to obstruct the operations and certainly to create situations that endanger and in some cases reportedly have resulted in assaults on federal officials. They don't have any power to do that.
Boom. Okay, boom. This is all pretty obvious stuff, but nonetheless, not really for one Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is trying to basically advise people, and she says this is within her freedom of speech, that they can resist arrest should ICE actually approach them. Let's go to some of her comments that she's been making, because this is what is coming under fire. Tom Homan doesn't really appreciate when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is telling them to resist arrest and therefore put in jeopardy the lives of his ICE officers as they try and do their jobs.
Principle number one in what you can do is that when one of these things comes to your backyard, you can.
I just want to stop. First of all, you may have to turn up the volume a little bit because this is her social media feed. One of these things comes to your backyard. One of these things, these ICE officers are just things. I mean, you hear her degradation of law officers trying to do their job, calling them things. We'll continue.
Resist. And what that happens over millions of people is that you generate enough friction that they cannot go as fast as they want to go, okay? So I'm going to give you some examples that have already been working. Let's start with immigration and ICE. When people say, what can we do? In my community, we are a heavily immigrant community. ICE raids deeply affect and disrupt our community. So, number one, if you live in a community with a lot of immigrants, know your rights. That's one tangible thing you can do that I want you to do. And that means know your rights if you are a US citizen as well. Okay? Here's one way that we're going to create some friction in this system. Tom Homan, who's directing a lot of these ICE operations nationally, etc., he went on TV practically crying. This dude was whining his ass off because ICE went into the city of Chicago, and Chicago had prepared for them. Community organizers, activists, and their mayor and local elected officials who were solid on this issue, they educated the city on their legal rights. Because what ICE tries to do is that they rely on people not knowing their rights in order to enter buildings, in order to search workplaces, etc. So when you know your rights, you are able to tell them no, and they do walk away. What you can do is protect people around you and also make sure that you are slowing down this system. The slower they operate, the less they can break.
All right, so she wants to slow it down. Remember what happened in Chicago like a month prior to her issuing that? The Chicago raid, I guess, didn't actually happen in the way that it was expected because it got leaked, because there are people out there leaking what ICE is going to do. That's kind of a problem. On top of that, she sent out this little pamphlet. Let's see if we got it. Oh, she and Ilhan Omar, they're both doing this. If you see ICE in public, make sure you demand documentation. Make sure you demand their verification.
You had a recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan.
Forgive me, this is also, you can see in Spanish. In addition, make sure you share this information with your networks of people so that you can try to impede, in the words of Tom Homan, the actual arrest. So he's getting a little annoyed, understandably, naturally, because this, once again, is not an area for dispute. Go back to the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution. It actually specifically deals with this. If states have a different view on immigration and they want to welcome people and say, sure, we can give you a license, this, that, and the other, they actually can't do that because according to the Supremacy Clause, the federal government has the right to actually interject themselves in between the state and these migrants. And so the states are now finding themselves in a more vulnerable position. The DOJ has already called out, for example, New York and Illinois. So AOC, a couple of months ago, started rattling horns and rattling cages and saying she thought she was going to be arrested by the DOJ. She may indeed. Here she is with NPR trying to justify this and say this is simply her freedom of speech. She's got to stand up for her constituents. I mean, forget the fact that her constituents are not actually the illegals, because the illegals still can't vote in New York even though AOC would like to see it differently. Here we go.
You had a recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan, the president's Homeland Security czar, so-called. You held an online forum, a Know Your Rights forum, that he didn't like. What were you doing? What was your goal as you saw it?
My job is to educate and act as a liaison of critical information to my constituents. And I was informing all of my constituents of their constitutional protections, and in particular, their constitutional protections against illegal search and seizure in the United States.
Homan was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally. Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents. Yeah.
He said he was going to report you, or even that he did reach out to the Department of Justice. Have you heard from the Department of Justice?
I have not, and I intend on reaching out to the Department of Justice to inquire.
Really? What would your question be for the Department of Justice?
Well, there is a member of the Trump administration who is threatening and seeks to open an inquiry, and are you going to do it?
What would you learn? What do you hope to learn from that exchange?
I think it's important to know where this administration stands and if they intend on using political intimidation to silence their critics.
Oh my gosh. You see? So my theory holds, right? That she's seeking attention. She's trying to get attention, which is why she's firing off this letter. This one went to Pam Bondi. This is in late February, and she continues to cite this actually as recently as Friday, frustrated that she has not heard anything back. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger for you guys. She said, educating the public about their rights, especially in a time of rising uncertainty, is a key part of my responsibility as an elected official. A government that uses threats of DOJ investigations to suppress free speech is a threat to all. So she's all upset because she's doing something that, honestly, guys, you know, she just shouldn't, right? We know that she has no jurisdiction here, and yet she does it anyway. And now she's being asked, are you going to be arrested? I don't know, because she has sent these letters and she hasn't heard anything just yet, which is why when we go back to her soundbite where she's getting a little crazy here, I think it's a deliberate attempt to goad one Tom Homan, right? This is deliberate from AOC.
If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem.
I don't think he's that intimidated by this. What do you think? In fact, if I recall, he kind of made some funny remarks about basically she wasn't even born when he was first working in this field, and he's worked for 6 different presidents. Oh, we actually happen to have it, so I'll play it for you.
First of all, you can't intimidate me. Come on, give me a break. You know, I was enforcing him. I was wearing a green uniform, Border Patrol agent, for 5 years before she was even born. I had more than 3 decades enforcing immigration law before she became a member of Congress. I worked for 6 presidents. I've seen policies, I've seen hundreds of policies. Some worked, some didn't. But you can't deny the success of the Trump administration when it comes to border security. Again, the most secure border in the history of this nation. And I said from day one, and she knows this, you can not support ICE, shame on you. You can support sanctuary cities, shame on you. But you can't cross the line. You can't knowingly impede ICE law enforcement officers. That is a felony. You can't harbor and conceal, knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE. That is a felony. And you certainly can't commit criminal trespass. You know, and as far as New York, her district, this administration has done more to protect her district than she has. The number of criminal aliens we took off the streets of New York made her community much safer. She ought to be thanking the members of this administration, the men and women of ICE who protect this country and make her community safer. So, you know, it's politics over public safety. It's just ridiculous. She ought to love her community more than she hates Trump, because we're doing a lot to protect her community.
Yeah, you'd think that she would love her community. But you know what? I'm going to show you some statistics that kind of prove she doesn't care 2 bits about her community. The crime levels, they have skyrocketed since Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came into power there, because she's more about grandstanding and trying to somehow prove a point on all this, which I'm telling you, she's never going to be able to do because of the U.S. Constitution and the Supremacy Clause and the Commerce Clause and Naturalization Clause. You name it, you can take this thing all the way to the Supreme Court, and I suspect it will go, and she will lose. She is wrong, but it doesn't stop her from grandstanding, all in an attempt to make Trump look bad. Here she is, my favorite. I apologize if I've shown you this before, but it is just so darn good. This is Tom Homan, and this is him from a couple years ago. I want to say this is like 2019, and he's up against AOC in this moment in Congress. And even if you've seen it before, you got to see it again, because it is that compelling. It is that compelling, you guys. He basically just slams her right to her face. And remember, he's a good guy. He's been doing this a long time, back in the days when the Democrats actually stood for borders as well. Take a peek.
This memo.
You're not the author, but you signed the memo.
Yes, a zero tolerance memo.
So you provided the official recommendation to Secretary Nielsen on for the United States to pursue family separation.
I gave Secretary Nielsen numerous recommendations on how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation was option 3, family separation.
What I'm saying, this is not the only paper where we've given the Secretary numerous options to secure the border and save lives.
And so the recommendation, of the many that you recommended family separation.
I recommended zero tolerance.
Which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Homan,
family.
with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay.
Right? I mean, it's pretty darn good. It's really good. And then there was that other moment when he was on with Jayapal, Representative Jayapal, and she was like, Mr. Homan, Mr. Homan. She kept slamming her gavel, and he's like, hang on, you work for me. I'm like, this is our border czar. This is the guy in charge now. Look, she's not doing her job as a representative. She's not actually keeping her people safe or keeping them prosperous, right? She lost the opportunity to get the Amazon jobs. Those were like six-figure jobs, good jobs that would have come to Queens. She didn't want that because, hey, she's a socialist. And why would you have any company there that might employ people? We don't want companies that employ people. No, the government's supposed to do it all. Little handouts. She's AOC meets Marie Antoinette. So take a look. Her district is a disaster, ladies and gentlemen, just a disaster. New York posted this really comprehensive look, looking at the increase in crime since she has come in. Total increase of 70%. I mean, this is unbelievable. Really, really disgusting. I mean, it's worse than New York City, right? New York City has a 31% increase in crime. AOC's district has a 70% increase in crime. This is the stuff she doesn't want you to know about. Again, going back to the study done by the New York Post, the 110th precinct in Queens, which covers parts of the infamous Market of Sweethearts. I guess that's like the red light district. Human trafficking, prostitution mecca of Roosevelt Avenue saw a 100% surge, the highest increase of any New York City precinct in that period. So they got a real, this is the defund the police socialist lawmaker, and she's got a 70% rise in crime. Not surprising, but I think the people are getting a little frustrated. Here, look at this one. This is a picture that the New York Post took in that 115th precinct where residents are complaining about gangs like MS-13 having marked their neighborhoods. And you're looking at a storefront there where you see right there on the store, MS-13 scribbled onto the store in spray paint. So this is not good.